3 True Horror Stories from Restaurants. Story 1, The Haunted Kitchen. The Olive Grove had stood for over a century, nestled in the heart of a quaint town, its wooden beams creaking with tales of the past. The restaurant was famed for its homemade pasta and secret family recipes. However, it was also notorious for something more sinister, rumors of a haunting by the spirit of Giovanni, a chef who had perished in a tragic kitchen accident decades earlier. Newly hired, Lucas, a young chef eager to make his mark, found himself enthralled by the restaurant's history. On his first night, he overheard the staff sharing ghost stories. "You, hear whispers in the kitchen," one waitress warned, her voice low. "And Dawn, be surprised if you see things move on their own. Giovanni doesn't like when we mess with his recipes." Lucas awed it off, but as he began his shift, a chill ran down his spine. The kitchen was dimly lit, the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows. He tried to focus on his tasks, chopping vegetables and kneading dough, but the air felt heavy. An inexplicable tension enveloped him, and he could have sworn he heard faint whispers, as if the very walls were conversing. The first incident occurred when he was alone, preparing for the evening rush. As he reached for a knife, it slid off the counter, clattering to the floor. Shaking his head, Lucas dismissed it as a simple accident. But then, he felt a cold breeze, despite the lack of open windows. The temperature seemed to drop suddenly, and he rubbed his arms to ward off the chill. Over the following weeks, the occurrences escalated. Pots would clang unexpectedly, and he often caught glimpses of a figure in the corner of his eye, a tall man, dressed in a chef's coat, with an expression of deep sorrow. One evening, while rolling out dough, he felt a presence behind him. He turned, heart racing, but found nothing. Determined to prove that the tales were mere superstition, Lucas stayed late one night to film a vlog, documenting the supposed hauntings. He set up his camera, pointing it toward the kitchen, and started speaking to his audience. "Tonight, we're going to see if the legend of Giovanni is true," he said, trying to keep his tone light. As he spoke, the lights flickered again, and he felt a sudden drop in temperature. "Is anyone here?" he called out, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. Suddenly, a pot flew off the shelf, crashing to the floor. Lucas jumped back, adrenaline pumping. The camera shook in his hand as he whispered, "Okay, that was definitely not just my imagination." He felt a shiver crawl up his spine. "Giovanni, if you here, show me a sign." Almost immediately, the air grew thick with the scent of garlic and basil, a comforting yet unsettling aroma that filled the kitchen. His heart raced, he knew he was not alone. Just then, the lights dimmed completely, plunging the kitchen into darkness. He fumbled for his phone, illuminating the space with a weak glow. As he glanced around, he caught sight of the ghostly figure standing at the stove. It was Giovanni, his eyes filled with anguish. "Why do you disturb my kitchen?" the apparition whispered, his voice a haunting melody. Lucas could barely breathe, the weight of fear pressing down on him. "I didn't mean to intrude," he stammered. "I just wanted to know your story." With that, Giovanni pointed to a faded recipe book on the counter. "Respect the recipes, or you will pay the price." The ghostly chef then vanished, leaving Lucas trembling. The next day, he delved into the book, discovering handwritten notes filled with cryptic messages. Each recipe had an accompanying story, tales of love, loss, and culinary artistry. Lucas began to understand that Giovanni was not just a spirit, but a guardian of the restaurant's legacy. From that day on, Lucas approached his work with reverence. He honored the recipes, avoiding any alterations, and the hauntings subsided. While he still felt the occasional chill, he no longer feared the spirit. Instead, he felt a kinship with Giovanni, as if they were both chefs dedicated to their craft. Years later, Lucas became head chef at the Olive Grove, known not just for his culinary skills, but for preserving the restaurant's haunted history. Guests would come not only for the food, but for stories of the ghostly chef who watched over them, ensuring that every dish was prepared with love and respect. Story 2, The Dinner Party. The Silver Spoon was a restaurant unlike any other, an exclusive venue renowned for its luxurious private dining experiences. Nestled in a chic urban neighborhood, it catered to the elite, hosting extravagant dinner parties for those who could afford its extravagant prices. Yet, whispers of the restaurant's dark history loomed over it like a shadow, warning that all was not as it seemed. A wealthy couple, Sarah and Mark, booked the Silver Spoon for their 10th wedding anniversary. Excited to celebrate in style, they planned an elaborate evening, inviting their closest friends. As day approached, Sarah couldn't shake a feeling of unease. She had heard unsettling rumors about the restaurant's past. On the night of the dinner, the ambience was perfect, candlelight flickered against the walls and soft music played in the background. As guests arrived, they were greeted by a hushed elegance that enveloped them. But as the evening progressed, Sarah noticed that the staff acted strangely. The waiters moved silently, avoiding eye contact, their expressions blank. As the first course was served, an unsettling tension filled the air. Guests began to whisper among themselves, exchanging nervous glances. Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine as she heard snippets of conversation, something about disappearances and the restaurant's dark past. "Did you hear about the couple that vanished last year?" one guest said. "They were last seen here." The words sent shivers down Sarah's spine, but she brushed it off, attributing it to overactive imaginations fueled by wine. As the main course was served, the lights flickered ominously. Laughter and conversation died down, replaced by a sense of foreboding. The waitstaff moved in a synchronized manner, almost robotic, placing the dishes in front of the guests with eerie precision. Then, in an instant, the lights went out completely. Panic ensued as the room plunged into darkness. Sarah's heart raced as he grasped Mark's hand. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice trembling. After what felt like an eternity, the lights flickered back on. To their horror, one of their friends, Jake, was missing from the table. His chair stood empty, and an air of dread filled the room. The remaining guests exchanged worried looks, and a sense of unease settled over the group. "Where's Jake?" Mark asked, his voice rising in panic. "He was just here." The waitstaff remained eerily silent, their expressions unchanged. As the group searched the restaurant, Sarah stumbled upon a hidden door in a dimly lit corridor. Curiosity piqued, she opened it, and descended a narrow staircase. The air grew colder as she ventured deeper, the faint sound of whispering echoing around her. At the bottom, she found a cellar filled with dusty bottles and old furniture. But it was the sight of several portraits on the walls that made her gasp. Each one depicted a previous guest, their faces twisted in terror. The realization hit her, these were the missing persons cut to the restaurant's dark past. Suddenly, a chilling voice echoed behind her. "You shouldn't have come here." Sarah turned to see a shadowy figure blocking the doorway, a sinister grin spreading across its face. "You were not the first to seek the truth." Terrified, she raced back upstairs, her heart pounding. She burst into the dining room, shouting, "We have to leave now." But the atmosphere had shifted, the guests were now trapped in a trance, the waitstaff standing ominously around them. Mark grabbed her arm, his eyes wide with fear. "What did you find?" he asked urgently. Before she could answer, the lights flickered again, and the guests began to chant in unison. "We are here for the feast." It was a mantra that chilled Sarah to her core. In a moment of desperation, she realized that they were being lured into a trap, a ritual designed to keep the restaurant's dark history alive. She and Mark needed to break the spell. With determination, they shouted together, "We won, to be part of this." The chant faltered, and the guests snapped out of their trance, confusion spreading across their faces. The waitstaff recoiled, their sinister demeanor faltering. As the couple led their friends out of the restaurant, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The air felt lighter, and the oppressive energy dissipated. They hurried down the street, breathless and shaken. Once they were safely away from the Silver Spoon, they turned to each other. "We need to warn others," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "That place is dangerous." Though they escaped that night, the haunting memory of the restaurant lingered. The couple made it their mission to share their experience, ensuring that the truth about the silver spoon would never be forgotten, and that no one else would fall victim to its dark allure. Story 3, The Last Meal. The diner, aptly named Last Supper, was a relic from another era, its neon sign flickering dimly against the night sky. Known for its peculiar theme, serving the last meals of executed prisoners, it drew a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Located on the outskirts of town, it was a place where locals whispered tales of eerie happenings. One rainy evening, food blogger Alex decided to visit Last Supper for a feature article. He had heard of its notoriety and was intrigued by the concept. As he entered, the bell above the door jingled, announcing his arrival. The diner was surprisingly cozy, adorned with vintage memorabilia that felt like a trip back in time. Behind the counter stood an older waitress, her expression unreadable. "Welcome to Last Supper. What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice laced with a strange familiarity. "I'd like to try the special," Alex replied, curious about the infamous last meal of a long-dead inmate. As he settled into a booth, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The other patrons sat in silence, their eyes glued to their plates, as if they were all part of an unspoken agreement. The waitress served him a plate that resembled something from a history book, a hearty meal with a side of macabre. Taking his first bite, he felt a strange sensation wash over him, a sense of dread mingled with nostalgia. The flavors were rich and comforting, yet there was an underlying darkness that he couldn't quite place. As he ate, he overheard snippets of conversations from nearby tables. "Did you hear about the couple who vanished last week?" one man whispered. "They were last seen here." Intrigued, Alex leaned in, but the diner suddenly fell silent. The air thickened, and the lights flickered. The waitress reappeared, her gaze piercing. "You should leave while you can," she warned, her voice low. The diner has a way of keeping its secrets. Ignoring the warning, Alex continued to eat, determined to uncover the truth. As he delved into his meal, he noticed the walls adorned with photographs of previous patrons, all of whom shared a chilling resemblance. Each picture depicted a person moments before their disappearance, their smiles eerily frozen in time. Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Panic rippled through the diner as everyone scrambled to find their phones. In the dim glow, Alex could see the figures of the other patrons, their faces contorted in fear. The atmosphere grew oppressive, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. "Where's the exit?" someone shouted, their voice tinged with desperation. As the lights flickered back on, Alex's heart sank. The diner was now eerily empty, the once bustling atmosphere replaced by an unsettling quiet. He glanced around, realizing he was alone, the other patrons having vanished without a trace. In a frenzy, he rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as he banged against it, shouting for help. "Let me out," he yelled, but his voice echoed back in a chilling silence. As he turned back to the diner, he saw the waitress standing at the counter, a sinister smile creeping across her face. "Welcome to your last meal," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "You read just like the others. You'll never leave." Suddenly, Alex felt a cold grip on his shoulder. He spun around to find a figure, a ghostly apparition of a former patron, their eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. "Help us," the spirit pleaded. "We're trapped here, bound to this place." Understanding washed over Alex. The diner was a trap, feeding off the souls of those who entered. He needed to escape before it was too late. In a desperate bid for freedom, he bolted towards the kitchen, the only place that seemed untouched by the ominous energy. Inside, he found an old back door, half hidden behind boxes. With a surge of adrenaline, he pushed it open and stumbled into the alleyway. Outside, the rain poured down, washing away the darkness of the diner. Alex gasped for air, his heart racing as he turned back to see the neon sign flickering ominously. He had escaped, but the images of the trapped souls lingered in his mind. As he drove away, he made a vow to share his experience, to warn others of the diner's dark secret. The Last Supper would no longer keep its horrors hidden. He would ensure that everyone knew the truth, that some meals are meant to be the last.